Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Sports Wrap with Michael Kravetz. And on today's show, we got a lot of things to get into, but we're going to start it off with the Pittsburgh Penguins. The regular season, the shortened 48-game season, is now officially over, and the playoffs are set to begin this Tuesday, and the Penguins are the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, and we found out who their opponent would be after last night's Ottawa-Boston game. The Senators win 4-2, so that means the Penguins will take on the New York Islanders in the first round of the playoffs. And a lot of people think that the matchup, the Islanders, they always give the Penguins, some tough games. The Islanders, they've held their own against the Penguins the past couple years, because before the Penguins dominated them in the regular season. But really, the Islanders lineup to me doesn't look like it can match the Penguins defensively or offensively. They do have a veteran goaltender in Evgeny Nabokov, and you never know if a hot goalie shows up, that could win a team a series. Penguins faced that before with the Canadiens when Halak was there, so you never know. But I think the Penguins should definitely, I wouldn't say they should roll over the Islanders, but I would expect them maybe to win in 6 games, possibly 5. But the one thing to note that, as fans, they always got to tend to look at maybe, what's the worst case scenario here, or what scares me, because you don't want to, as a fan, you go in thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be a cakewalk, but if you need to have some, signs of like maybe possible worry with facing the Islanders in the first round, the Penguins have never beaten the Islanders in a playoff series. They lost back in 1975, 1982, and 1993. Of course, everyone remembers David Bolek scoring the overtime goal in Game 7 of the Patrick Division Finals to give the Islanders the 4-3 series win, because a lot of people said that was the Penguins' best team, when they still had Wolf Samuelsson, Ron Francis, Jaromir Jagr, Mario Lemieux. After coming off back-to-back cup victories, people thought this was the best team, yet the Penguins lose to the Islanders, who were heavily favored. The Penguins were heavily favored to win that series. So you never know what's going to happen. I think that this will be the first time the Penguins will finally beat the Islanders in the playoffs. But if you want to say oh, this worries me, they've never beaten the Islanders, I guess you can pinpoint that. But the Penguins, they lost the first game to the Islanders this season, but then they won the next 4. So you have to like that about this matchup. And like I said, better offensive players, better defensive players, and the Penguins have the younger, more athletic goalie right now, Marc-Andre Fleury. So I think the advantage points all the way to the Penguins. But to close out the regular season, the Penguins had a 2-game losing streak. It was their first in a long time when they lost at home to the Buffalo Sabres. It ended the Penguins' 7-game winning streak now, and then back earlier, a few weeks ago, they ended the Penguins' 15-game winning streak at the Consol Energy Center. The Penguins lost this game 4-2. The offense didn't look as crisp as it was in the past. Malkin made his return. Letang came back after food poisoning. And this is Fleury's first game after missing a few starts because his wife was in the hospital about to be put in labor. So maybe he had some stuff on his head and on his mind playing, but it wasn't just a good thing to see, because I know you want to I know the Penguins had everything wrapped up, but you want to see the team play a little bit better, a little bit more smoother. So then they go to New Jersey for their final road game of the regular season, and Fleury gets to start once again. And in this game, the Penguins are up 2-0, but the Devils find a way to put 3 goals in. Ilya Kovalchuk, off a weird bounce, gets the deciding goal to give the New Jersey Devils the 3-2 win. And back-to-back losses, like I said, for the Penguins. It was the first time in a long time. And it's a good thing that they won't have to play Buffalo or New Jersey in the playoffs. Both teams missing out, because the Devils beat the Penguins 3 times and the Sabres beat them twice. No other team has been able to beat the Penguins 2 or 3 times. So I think it's a little good that they won't be seeing any of those teams come playoff time. But the season finale, or regular season finale, the home game against the Carolina Hurricanes, Jordan Staal making his first appearance at Consol since being traded to the Carolina Hurricanes. And in this game, you know, it was back and forth early on. The Penguins were up 3-1. Or excuse me, it was 1-0 in the first period. Then the Penguins go up 3-1 in the second period. Then the Hurricanes get 2 goals about 40 seconds apart to tie it up at 3 going into the third period. And what happens? Well, the Penguins' offense finally just comes out with a bang against this Hurricanes team, scoring 5 goals in the third period. They end up winning 8-3. James Neal, in his first game back after missing a lot because of concussion-like symptoms, he gets a hat trick. Just to see the play with him and Malkin, they are probably the best 1-2 tandem. I mean, obviously you'd say Crosby and Malkin, but Crosby and Malkin don't play on the same line. But I think Neal and Malkin just have a certain chemistry where they know where the other one's going to be. They get him the great passes, and then the shooter takes it from there. Neal putting in 3 goals. Malkin getting 2 assists on 3 of Neal's goals. I mean, Malkin had a goal and 2 assists. Jokinen also added 2 goals. Paul Martin was also back. Brendan Morrow, Matt Cook had a goal each. So it was just a great sign to see, because you don't want to go into the playoffs riding a 3-game losing streak. You at least want to, you know, feel good about yourselves going in. So, and the power play was clicking on all cylinders, going 2 for 3. And I think one of the things that not a lot of people are mentioning, the penalty kill. That's been the struggle for this team so far this year. They were 25th in the league, about 79% on the PK. There were times when it started to get better, but then there were some lapses. Carolina was 0 for 4. Granted, the Hurricanes don't have that great of a power play, but it's just nice that they weren't going to give up any power play goals in the final game, so maybe they can build off that momentum a little bit. Because I think that would be the only reason for concern. If the Penguins were to lose a series, I'd say it would be because of the penalty kill, because that's their weakest area right now. But if you look at it, there should be no reason why the Penguins shouldn't make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. Because even if Fleury struggles, which is no excuse because he's had the rest now, he was not overworked, they have a reliable backup veteran in Tomas Vokoun, who has been to the playoffs multiple times. He's won series, and he has played really well with the Penguins this year, going 13-4. I mean, that's really good numbers for a backup, so I don't think there's any excuse there. But, and as far as the depth goes for this Penguins team, I mean, look at the defense. You have at least 8 defensemen who, any of the 8 would be starters for another team. Even the backup players for the Penguins, they would be starters on another team. So I don't think there's any excuses for this team as if they can't make it far, possibly the Stanley Cup Finals, because it's all right there in front of them. This is the best roster I have ever seen since I've been watching the Penguins, since about 1997. This is the best roster, the best lineup, the most offensive weapons that they have had in quite a while. So, and in the playoffs, you know, they tend to be really close games. I don't know, with the Penguins' scoring capabilities, I think that they could definitely, I wouldn't say they're going to sweep every single opponent, but they have a good shot of maybe ending a lot of the series early on. Maybe five games. Because like I said, if they can get stellar play from the D, and then add that with the scoring, if it continues, then it should be quite a nice playoff ride for this Penguin team. And so now we're going to take a look at some of the stat leaders through this amazing season for the Penguins. They end up going 36-12, 72 points, the only team in the NHL to not have a overtime or shootout loss. And then if you just look at some of the numbers, I mean, Sidney Crosby, he only plays in 36 games, 12 less games played than the number 1 player leading the NHL in scoring. Martin St. Louis at 60 points. Crosby ended up finishing 4th with 56 points. So I think that's a good indicator that maybe he should be MVP of the league. I know a lot of people are going to say Alex Ovechkin, but I mean, come on. Crosby would have been playing the whole year. He probably would have had maybe 80 points. Pascal Dupuis and Chris Kunitz both were 1 and 2 in plus minus. Dupuis with a plus 31, Kunitz a plus 30. They finished with the number 2 power play in the league at nearly 25%. And then if you just look at some of the outstanding play that you got from Chris Kunitz, he worked on either line, whether he was playing with Evgeny Malkin or James Neal or Sidney Crosby. 22 goals, 30 assists, 52 points. That was good for second on the team behind Crosby. Pascal Dupuis, another great season. 20 goals, 18 assists, 38 points. Chris Letang, who just finished behind PK Subban for the league lead among defensemen with points. He had 38 points, 33 assists. And then James Neal, coming back with a hat trick. He gets a 20-goal season. 21 goals, 15 assists, and 36 points. And like I mentioned about the goalies, Marc-Andre Fleury tied for second in the league with 23 wins. And then Tomas Vokoun, 92 save percentage. That's what you want to see from a dominant team, a number 1 seed, that they really did not struggle at all through the year. Had a 15-game winning streak at one point, and then a 7-game winning streak. Hardly had any back-to-back losses, and they did not lose 3 games in a row at any point this year, and they weren't blown out in too many of their losses. So it's a team that hangs around and they play tough, and I think it all goes credit to the defense. And so now we take a look at the lines, what they possibly could look like in the playoffs. Sidney Crosby will not see a team doctor, until tomorrow, so there's not going to be any word yet on whether or not he will start the playoffs. He will definitely be back, definitely in the first round, but there's no word as if he will be back for Game 1 or even Game 2. But if he does return, here's what I think the line should look like. I think line 1, the best line in hockey throughout the year, Crosby, Dupuis, Kunitz. I know Kunitz has been playing well with Malkin and Neal. If you want to get a Ginla in there, but I just think Pascal Dupuis and Chris Kunitz, they know Crosby. They've played with him for so long now. It was the best line in hockey. You should put it back together because I don't think the chemistry, it won't miss a beat. Line 2, James Neal, Evgeny Malkin, Jarome Iginla. I know you put Iginla, maybe a right wing, but him and Neal can flip-flop, I think, depending on to which side, because that right there could be number 1 line on most other teams. So, and I know they get a chance to play too often together, with Malkin missing games and Neal missing games, but I just think that would be a good scoring line right there. And then line 3, I would say Morrow, Sutter, and Jokinen. And then I think line 4, Cook would be pushed down to 4. I think Cook and Jokinen could switch off and on in the games between line 3 and 4. And then Cook would play on the 4th line with Craig Adams. And I would say Tanner Glass if you need him in certain games, but also maybe Bo Bennett. Because I think Dustin Jeffrey, he scored some goals late in the season, when guys were missing time due to injury. He definitely played well. And then Tyler Kennedy, he's kind of been a disappointment this year. I would put Bo Bennett in there ahead of them because, Bennett's the future, and he has showed that he can handle himself in the NHL level. Now, I know the playoffs is a different story, but I still think he deserves more playing time than Jeffrey and Kennedy. And as far as the defense goes, I think you definitely have Orpik and Letang. Now, Orpik still has not returned. There hasn't been much word about his injury since the Buffalo game after the first period, so that is a little bit concerning, but he might be on the ice practice skating with the team today. I know it happened earlier on this morning, but we'll definitely be looking closely into that because he is a key player in this defense. And like I said, even if one guy goes down, they do have depth, but Orpik he's such a vital part to this Penguins defense. So if he does though return and he's healthy, I would say Orpik, Letang, then Murray, Martin, and then Eaton and Niskanen. Eaton has been, I think, one of the deciding keys for this team to be successful on defense. They've only lost, I believe, twice, either 2 or 3 times, with Eaton in the lineup. And they signed him just to be, practice with the team, and then he finally cracked into the lineup, and he hasn't missed a beat. I mean, he's 36 years old. He's with the Penguins when they won the Cup in 2009. He's paired with Letang that year. They might go back to that pairing in the playoffs. But I just think Eaton, he's not going to give you, goal scoring or assists because, I don't think he has no goals. So, and no assists up to this point. He had a couple big goals in the 2009 playoff run, so maybe he's saving up some for this year's playoffs. But I just think he has been one of the most consistent players on defense, and he gives his body up all the time, blocks a lot of shots, and he's asked to go up against some of the big time players on the opposing team. So I definitely feel that he will definitely play. And then Matt Niskanen will join him on the last pairing. And if you look at the other players that they have that could possibly just step in for a game or two if the series is the Penguins lead 3-0 or something. Simone Dupre, who will be there for the future. Some people are saying that they should get him more playing time in the playoffs. Robert Bortuzzo, who has not played as much as he would like to, but when he stepped in, he did the job well. And then Derek England, who is pretty much your enforcer on defense. Now, I know there's going to be some games where they're going to need him in, and I think he will just add more grit to the team. And he's going to be in there fighting someone if need be. So, like I said, they have the best defense, I think, in the NHL. So they just got to continue playing like the way they did in the regular season in the playoffs. And they should definitely make then the Eastern Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup. I think the two teams that will pose the greatest challenge for the Penguins will be the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals, just because of the surge that they've been on. And I wouldn't count out the Maple Leafs because they seem to give the Penguins a lot of fits, and I think that's a tough arena to go to on the road. So we'll see how the matchups fare out. Just want to go over the other matchups, though, first. You got the Penguins versus the Islanders, the Bruins versus the Maple Leafs, Canadiens versus the Senators, and then the Capitals versus the Rangers. And then in the Western Conference, you have the Blackhawks versus the Wild. You have the Blues versus the Kings, the Ducks versus the Red Wings, and then the Vancouver Canucks taking on the San Jose Sharks. So a lot of good matchups to look forward to. I love watching playoff hockey. Just every game, so intense. So definitely should be a fun year here in the playoffs of the NHL. So we'll definitely be talking about that more next week, going over important series. And who knows? I have a feeling a lot of these first round matchups could go to 6 or 7 games, so that should make for some interesting hockey. And now we're going to switch it over to the Pittsburgh Pirates, who quite arguably are the hottest team in baseball, at least the hottest team in the National League. 12-4 in their last 16 games. They are not being intimidated by any of these pitchers that they have faced. And it all started with this road trip against the Philadelphia Phillies. The Pirates took 3 out of 4. And you looked at the series coming in. They face a rookie pitcher in the first game, Jonathan Pettibone. And then you got to go up against their big three in Hamels, Holiday, and Lee. You think, okay, the Pirates should definitely, I wouldn't say definitely, they should beat the rookie pitcher. And then maybe they'll get lucky if they can at least take 1 out of the final 3 against those top 3 quality pitchers who have pretty much had the Pirates' numbers as of late. And what do you know? The Pirates have Burnett going up against Pettibone in the first game, and they end up losing 3-2. It was a solid pitching effort by Pettibone, and then Burnett also, but Pirates fell up a little bit short. And then you take on the other 3 pitchers in the next 3 games. You have Locke going up against Cole Hamels. Locke ends up pitching excellent, going 6 innings, only giving up 2 hits, 6 strikeouts. And Hamels was pretty good as well, going 8 innings and only giving up 2 runs. But the Phillies offense just couldn't do anything. The Pirates win that game 2-0. Gabby Sanchez adds a home run, his 2nd of the year. And then the next day against Roy Halladay, the Pirates have Wandy going up, and Rodriguez has a tough time with his curveball in this game. And the Pirates are down 3-1 going into the 7th inning. And then Pedro Alvarez, they take Halladay out. Pedro Alvarez gets his first home run off a lefty, off Antonio Bastardo, who's one of the best lefty relievers in the game. And then they end up getting 3 runs in the top of the 8th. Obviously, they get 2 runs in the top of the 8th to go 4-3, and then they add 1 in the 9th. And then in the 9th, Grilly's automatic. He strikes out Chase Utley to end the game. The Pirates win it 5-3. And then in the finale, James McDonald going up against Cliff Lee, and it was a pitching duel into the 6th. Phillies are up 3-1. And then we go to the top of the 7th. The Pirates add a run off a Gabby Sanchez RBI single that scored Starling Marte. Charlie Manuel comes out to talk to Cliff Lee, and Cliff Lee convinces Manuel to let him in the game, saying, "Okay, I can get McHenry out here. I'll be able to finish this game, or finish the inning." Well, he was wrong. McHenry singles to center field, scores Andrew McCutchen. The game's tied at 3. Then in the top of the 8th, Philippe Aumont comes in to replace Cliff Lee. He hits Clint Barmas with 1 out. Snyder singles, Marte singles, bases are loaded. Garrett Jones, a huge pinch hit, 2-run double for Brandon Inge, gives the Pirates a 5-3 lead. They add another run with a sac fly for Gabby Sanchez. Pirates go on to win it 6-4. Just a timely hit by Jones, pinch hitting for Inge. And then the night before, Inge comes up and pinch hit for Garrett Jones, and he gets an RBI double. So it was just a nice thing to see. You know, these Pirates are coming back late in games. If they're down in the 7th by 2 runs, maybe even 3, they're just finding a way to hang into these games and compete. I think that's what's different so far from this team from the past 2 years. They're competing early on in the regular season. And then they had a big 3-game series in St. Louis. St. Louis is at the top of the division. Friday night's game was just atrocious. Jonathan Sanchez, who was already on a tight leash, comes in, gives up back-to-back home runs to start the game. Then he gives up another hit to Matt Holliday. And then he hits Alan Craig. I wouldn't say it was in the head. It was like near the shoulder area, the upper shoulder. And home plate umpire Tim Timmons says, "That's it. Sanchez, you're out of the game." He throws him out. Now, Clint Hurdle came out and was arguing. I think it is absolutely ludicrous that Timmons threw out Sanchez, because he obviously thought that there was enough intent for him to actually go out and hit Craig. I didn't see that. I mean, Sanchez started off the game so poorly. Why would he want to purposely hit a guy to make even more trouble for himself in the first inning? But I don't know, maybe he was getting angry, he was getting frustrated, maybe that's what led to it, but I still believe it was just a horrible decision by Timmons. Sanchez was then later suspended for 6 games. He's deciding to appeal the suspension, so we'll see how that turns out. It was just not good to see Sanchez being thrown out of the game, because I just think that was just a horrible, horrible decision by Tim Timmons. And if you look at Sanchez now, the Pirates are going to lose this game because just a horrible outing by Sanchez. They weren't really able to recover. The offense really couldn't do much against Lance Lynn, who's now 4-0. They lose the game 9-1. Jared Hughes comes in, gives up a couple hits, a couple walks. Jinmar Gomez comes in for Sanchez in the first, and he pitches about 4 1/3 innings. He gives up 3 runs, and then Mazzaro comes in the 8th and gives up 4 runs, so that wasn't a good outing, a good relief outing for him. But Sanchez is now 0-3, 12.71 ERA, 21 hits in 11 1/3 innings, 5 home runs, 8 walks. It's just not something you want to see out of who's supposedly your number 4 starter in the rotation. So I would be surprised if he gets the next start. Well, if his suspension is lifted, I was surprised to see if he gets the next start, because that could have been Sanchez's last go-around in the Pirates starting rotation. But on Saturday, the Pirates came back strong. They were down 2-0, I believe, in the top of the 7th inning. And the Pirates score 4 runs in this inning to go up 4-2. It was started off by Russell Martin, 2-run home run. And then the Pirates had 2 more runs. They tack on another in the 8th. They win the game 5-3. Burnett pitched 6 strong innings. The first run he allowed in the first inning was off a double play. The run scored, though, on that double play. And then a 2-out double by John Jay in the 6th. And then an RBI single by Pete Kozma gave the Cardinals a 2-0 lead. But what surprised me in the game was that Mike Matheny took out Jake Westbrook. He pitched six extremely strong innings, only giving up 6 hits. He had 6 strikeouts. They took him out. He was under 100 pitches, which surprised me. And this was definitely his best start against the Pirates in his career, because he did not fare well against them in the past, going 1-7 with a 5.28 ERA. And he is a good pitcher. It's just he never pitched well against the Pirates, but with this start, maybe it'll turn the tide for him. But the Cardinals end up losing the game because they bring in Joe Kelly, and he can't get anybody out pretty much. He pitches, I think he gets one out, pitches a third of an inning, getting up 3 hits, 4 runs. And then Zepchinski comes in, gives up another run. And in this game, Alvarez, 2 for 5. He's starting to get his hits going. He's batting 198 now. He's got 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. It's nice to see him start to swing a bat a little bit more. And it's nice to see him get hits besides home runs, because that's always going to be a confidence builder for him. And the bullpen did the job again. Watson came in the 7th. 2 strikeouts, no hits. Melanson only gives up a hit, gets a strikeout, and then Grilly. First time he allowed a run this year. I think that's a good thing, though, because he's not going to feel like he's invincible. Gave up a couple hits, but he got to add another strikeout in the 9th. Picks up his 10th save, so he's now 10 for 10 early on in the year. And they did it without the likes of Travis Snyder and Neil Walker in the lineup. Walker, in the end of the game Friday night, his hand was stepped on by Pete Kozma when he was going into second base. He needed 6 stitches, and Hurdle said that they're not going to put him on the DL, but he will likely miss at least 6 games. And then Travis Snyder, who tried to make a diving attempt on a fly ball, had some discomfort on his right side, so he will most likely miss a few games coming up. But just a great comeback win for the Pirates. And then yesterday, just a huge win for them. End up winning the game 9-0. Stellar pitching once again by Jeff Locke. 7 innings, 3 hits, a couple walks, 4 strikeouts. He now has a streak of 13 consecutive scoreless innings. He has just surprised me. I did not think that he would be pitching this well. It's just really a good thing to see, because with Sanchez struggles, it's nice to at least see that Locke is starting to pitch well in the rotation. I mean, the Pirates, they put up 5 runs in the 9th to really shut the door on this game. Russell Martin, Russell the Muscle, that's what I like to call him. He had 2 more home runs in this game. 3 for 5, 3 RBIs. Garrett Jones, 3 for 4. He hit his home run. That was rolled a triple at first, but then they looked at it on replay and said it was a home run. Tabata adds his first home run, and then Starling Marte continuing with multi-hit games, 2 for 5. And then John McDonald, who got the start at second base, or at shortstop, eventually moved to second, got his first RBI, so that was nice to see. And you just look at this Pirates lineup, they're doing it without the production, from Walker and from McCutchen, the team's best player. Every different guy, it seems like, is coming up with some timely key hits in these games. I mean, McCutchen is, I believe, a 1 for 23 slump. Hurdle gave him the day off yesterday because they wanted to rest him at least at one point during this 20-game stretch, and it turned out to be a good move because the Pirates offense still showed up. So hopefully with the day off, McCutchen will get his head back in the game and just break out of the slump. It's the longest slump he's ever had. He's only batting .216, has a couple home runs, still tied for the team lead with 13 RBIs, but hopefully he can just get his offensive game together. And Garrett Jones and Starling Marte, Jones batting .324, Marte .323. Marte leads the team with 32 hits. He leads the MLB in first inning batting average. So that just goes to show you that the leadoff spot is finally working for the Pirates after they've just been in disarray there over the past few years, trying Tabata and trying Presley. They finally have found a solid leadoff hitter, and he's only going to get better later on in the season. And like I said, the bullpen, still impressive. The best bullpen in the National League. It could rival the Atlanta Braves. Melanson, 0.64 ERA. It's just lowering every inning he comes in. 14 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. Grilly, 10 for 10 in saves. 17 strikeouts, a .82 ERA. And then Justin Wilson. He comes in 2-0, 1.13 ERA. And then the surprise of the rotation, Jeff Locke. He leads the pitching staff in wins. He's 3-1 with a .283 ERA. So the Pirates are going to have some interesting decisions once Charlie Morton and Francisco Liriano come back. I think it's a given Sanchez won't be in there. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Locke, because he'll probably have at least one more outing before Morton and Liriano return. And if he pitches solid again, keeps that consecutive scoreless inning streak up, I don't know. I think it would be tough for them to take him out of this rotation. As much as I was all for him, leaving as soon as Morton and Liriano come back, just the way he's been pitching has just surprised me, and it's nice to see. So we'll see how this rotation shakes out in the next couple weeks. And what else can you say about this Pirate team? 15 wins so far in the month of April. Still have 2 more games left. They're going to be going to the House of Horrors in Milwaukee, where we know all the struggles they have had there. So it'll be interesting to see how this team plays there. But 15-10, the most wins they've had in the month of April since 1992. Coincidentally, last time the Pirates had a winning record, and the last time they were in the playoffs. And they are in first place, half-game lead over the Cardinals. And if you think about it, the Pirates struggled in the first couple months the past 2 years, and then they started getting it going middle of summer. Well, they're 15-10 now, a lot better than they were last year at this point, and who knows, maybe starting off good when a lot of people said that the Pirates' toughest month will be April. Maybe they're not going to have that collapse. A lot of fans, a lot of analysts are still not going to be jumping on the bandwagon just yet because they want to see if this can continue on later in the season, that they won't collapse because it's pretty much the same group of players. So we'll see how it turns out, but it's just nice, though, to see that the Pirates, 5 games over 500 at this point, and in first place in the NL Central. And now it's time to switch into some football talk. The NFL Draft finished this past Saturday, and the Steelers Draft, I would rate it a little bit above average. I'm going to go over now all the draft picks for the Steelers. It started on Thursday, where they took Jarvis Jones with the 17th pick, the outside linebacker from Georgia. In my mock draft, I really thought the Jets were going to take him. They had 2 picks in the top 13. They decided to pass on him. Jones fell right into the Steelers' lap. 6'2", 245. He played in the best conference in college football in the SEC. He was the most dominant defensive player in the SEC. So, you got the best defensive player in the best conference. Yes, you have to take him. He was diagnosed with stenosis. I don't think that really bothered the Steelers much. Like Kevin Colbert was saying, they didn't even bother talking to him at the Combine. They were going into it because they did not think he was going to be there when the Steelers were drafting 17th. But when he ran the 4.9 on the 40, they went up to him and started talking to him right away because they thought, okay, teams are going to shy away from him, but we like what we see in him. This is the first outside linebacker the Steelers have taken since Huey Richardson in 91, and we all know the bust that he turned out to be. The last really great outside linebacker drafted was Robin Cole in 1977. Now you're thinking, oh wait, they drafted Lamar Woodley. Woodley was defensive end at Michigan. They had to convert him to an outside linebacker. And of course, James Harrison, as we all know, went undrafted. It'll be interesting to see if Jones will start right away because Jason Worrells was slotted to be the starter once Harrison was signed by the Bengals. I think this is going to make Worrells hungrier. He's going to be working out the gym 24/7 now. He's going to be trying to add as much as he can to his game. I think that this is just going to only make him better. Jarvis Jones led the nation, set a school record with 14.5 sacks last year, 28 sacks in his 2 years as a starter for the Georgia Bulldogs, 45.5 tackles for losses, 9 forced fumbles. Like I said, just one of the best college defensive players the past 2 years. And, they talked to the Georgia coach, Mark Richt, and he only had great things to say about Jones. Just the intangibles that he has, just how nice of a guy he is on and off the field. Doesn't get into trouble, and that's just a good thing for the Steelers because the recent troubles they've had with drafting players that have had problems in the past. Jarvis Jones, impact player. I believe he can start right away. We'll see. Hopefully he doesn't get injured. You know what happened with Sean Spence last year. Let's just hope he does not get injured in the preseason and training camp. I don't have any wood here. I'd say knock on wood, but we'll see how it turns out at the linebacker position. So then on Friday, day 2 of the draft, 2nd and 3rd round, the Steelers, they get the running back, Le'Veon Bell from Michigan State, 6'1", 230 pounds. I know that I would say maybe about a few months ago, A lot of people were saying, oh, this guy could be a good pick for the Steelers. A lot of the draft experts graded this pick a D. I'm not sure why. I haven't seen much of Bell. He's only 20 years old. In his career with Michigan State, 3,346 yards, 33 touchdowns. He has good hands. He's able to catch the ball. That's a good thing to see, but I think they have that with Redmond right now. He is a good pass-catching running back. He appeared in 40 games with the Spartans, started his last 19. Todd Haley was said to, he said that he compares Bell to Eddie George when Haley was with the Cowboys and George was in his final years in the NFL. That's a good comparison. Obviously, definitely not fair enough to say that Bell will be the next Eddie George because, come on, he's only 20 years old. But I think a lot of people are going to be expecting him to come in and start. I know that's going to be pretty ridiculous. I don't think he will start right away. I guess this depends on training camp and preseason, but I think Ahmad Bradshaw is now definitely out of the equation at the running back spot because before the draft started on day 2, the Steelers signed former Pitt running back LeBron Stevens-Howling. I think Howling will be the kick returner. He held that position with the Cardinals, and he's not your number one starting running back, but I think he can come in. You can bring him in on third down situations. I think he's just a nice sign for the Steelers. And in the third round, they take a receiver. Not the receiver I was expecting them to take. Marcus Wheaton out of Oregon State, 5'11", 182 pounds. He reminds me of Antonio Brown. He ran a 4.55 at the Combine. He plays a lot faster on tape. He runs really well with the ball after the catch, very similar to Antonio Brown. He started 30 games in a row with the Beavers, and in his career, 227 receptions, almost 3,000 yards receiving, about 6 yards shy of that, 16 touchdowns. And he also ran for 631 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he might be another option for trick plays, something the Steelers didn't do much of last year. They've always had a receiver, with reverses or even maybe in a wildcat situation, they could put Wheaton in there. He caught 91 passes in his last year with the Oregon State, 11 touchdowns, which was one shy of the school's single-season record. I'm just a little disappointed that they couldn't get a taller receiver, but I like the pick. You want to get a guy who's a little faster, try to replace the speed of Wallace. I know it's going to be tough to do, but they drafted two positions where they had need for, and they passed up with the running back. They passed up on Eddie Lacy, who was coming out of Alabama. A lot of people said that he could possibly be taken in the first round. So that'll be an interesting thing to see. The Packers took Lacy. So we'll see how Bell turns out. I'm expecting him to come in and, just have a good work ethic. Not expecting him to start. But you got Bell, Redmond, Dwyer, Batch, Stevens-Howling. I think one of them will be cut. I'm thinking either Batch or Dwyer will be one of the odd men out. And now you look at the final day of the draft, Saturday. Steelers with their first fourth-round pick. They decide to trade up and get safety Shamarko Thomas out of Syracuse, 5'9", 217 pounds. Obviously, he's not going to come in and start unless there's an injury to Clark or Polamalu. The Steelers traded their third-round pick in next year's draft to move up because they had a feeling that the Buffalo Bills might try to take Thomas. He's a strong safety, a lot of muscle. A lot of people have compared him to Bob Sanders, who was a safety for the Colts for a long time. He ran a 4.38 at the Combine, very fast. 40.5-inch vertical jump, so that kind of makes up for his short height. And the Steelers plan to use him at the free safety position as the backup for Ryan Clark, even though in college he was primarily a strong safety. And he also was a consensus All-Big East Conference first-team selection. So he is a very good safety. Has the potential to make some good plays here. He'll obviously be maybe in the sub packages, but I think he'll be a nice addition to this team. Then with their second pick in the fourth round, the very questionable pick of this entire draft, they took a quarterback, Landry Jones from Oklahoma. 6'3", 221 pounds. I followed him a lot throughout his college career with Oklahoma. He was definitely in the running for the Heisman Trophy a couple times. Obviously didn't pan out toward the end where he was in the final 3 options for the Heisman Trophy, but had a lot of hype for the trophy. He played in a wide open spread offense with the Sooners. He doesn't have much of a running game to his repertoire. He's a pocket passer. Started the majority of his career in college, 50 of 52 games. He actually broke the Oklahoma and Big 12 record with 16,646 passing yards in his career, along with 123 touchdowns. He's pretty much a 4-year starter with Oklahoma, and this might spell the end now. I think Leftwich is definitely gone, but I think this will spell the end for Charlie Batch. Now, I think there's a chance they might carry 4 quarterbacks in the training camp with Jones, Gradkowski, Ben, and Batch, but I don't know. I think this Batch has just had a great career here with the Steelers, going 6-3. He's always filled in and done the job well for when Ben was down or even Leftwich went down, but I think this might spell the end. A lot of people are saying the Steelers shouldn't have took a quarterback this high because, Ben, I think, is still going to have a good 5 years here with the team. And I don't think Landry Jones is going to be sitting as a backup for the next 5 years, but maybe they think they can groom him into something special. So we'll see with that. 5th round, they add more to the secondary with Terry Hawthorne, a cornerback out of Illinois, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Nice to see a cornerback who's not below 6 feet. He's a bump and run style type of cornerback. He was a receiver in high school, then converted to a cornerback in college. Ran a 4.42 at the combine. There's a lot. He's a 5th round pick, so there's obviously going to be some negatives with him. He doesn't have really good hands. They're rather small. Has a lack of mental toughness. Obviously, you want the Steelers to try and get people in the secondary, that can actually intercept the ball, something they've had trouble with in the past. But he's young. I expect him to be with the team for a while because they're very thin at the cornerback position. He's good at playing the run. He had 6 interceptions, 2 for touchdowns, and 12.5 tackles for losses this past year. Over his career in Illinois. And like I said, he'll just be there to provide depth. With Keenan Lewis being gone, and they brought in William Gay, got still Cortez Allen, Curtis Brown, Ike Taylor. So the secondary should have a lot more depth added to it than it was last year. 6th round pick. Steelers had 2 in this round. The first one, another receiver, Justin Brown, a big, physical, tall receiver, something that I really wanted to see them address in this draft. 6'3", 209 pounds, also out of Oklahoma. He transferred from Penn State after the mess that went on there after his junior season. He started 39 games in his college career, 146 receptions, 1,926 yards, 8 touchdowns. A lot of the Steelers' first inclinations of him, he could possibly be a punt returner, because Antonio Brown, now that he's the number 1 receiver, I think the days of him being in special teams on the return game, I think that's over with. Brown had 71 returns for 637 yards in his college career, so I think that's a viable option. And they need tall receivers. I know Burris is tall, but Justin Brown, he's going to come in. I think both receivers will make the team for sure, because if you look at their receivers now, you got Brown, Sanders, Cotchery, Burris, Wheaton, Brown, Justin Brown, and then David Gilreath, who was on the practice squad. So out of those 7, I think 6 will definitely make the team, with the odd man out, I think, making the practice squad. The other pick in the 6th round, another linebacker, this time an inside linebacker, and Vince Williams from Florida State, 6 foot, 247 pounds. He's your prototypical size linebacker. He's going to provide depth for this team. They don't have a lot at the middle linebacker position. Behind Foote and Timmons, all you have is Sylvester, because Spence is still going to be on injured reserve again this year. So I think it's very likely to say Vince Williams will make this team unless he performs rather poorly in preseason and training camp. He runs to the ball, gets off the blocks early, likes to hit. He uses the lack of his height to play with leverage. He was not an every down player for Florida State, so you're not going to see him be a starter anytime soon. he'll just be in, with certain packages. Started 26 games in his career, 140 tackles, 3 sacks. He had 13.5 tackles for losses, and he played on a defense that was ranked second in total defense in college football in Division I last year. So he plays on winning teams. He plays for good defenses. And then with the Steelers' last pick in the 7th round, they took a defensive end, Nick Williams, 6'4", 320 pounds, out of Stanford. He was a prep, actually, basketball student and didn't play football until his senior year of high school. He added 75 pounds of muscle over his 4 years at Stanford, so that shows that he is a hard worker, especially in the gym. He has a 33-inch vertical jump, which is rather impressive for a defensive end. It's going to be tough for him to crack this lineup. They're the Steelers roster. I could see him maybe making the practice squad, because you see with the defensive ends and linemen that they had, you got Ziggy Hood, Cam Hayward, Brett Kiesel, Steve McClendon, Alameda Teamu. So it'll be tough for him to crack this lineup. It's the Steelers roster. But, he's a 7th round pick. Let's see what the Steelers can get out of him. Maybe it'll be a surprise. Kiesel was taken in the later rounds. Maybe it'll be another, turn out to be a stud like Kiesel was, but we'll see how that turns out. So, that was it. That was the draft for the Steelers. If I had to give him a grade, I'd say a B-. Question marks with the Le'Veon Bell selection and taking Landry Jones, even though I kind of like the pick, but people said they should have took a quarterback in the later rounds. We'll see how it turns out. I think the receivers can have an impact on this team. Jarvis Jones can. The running back, who knows, and then the secondary positions, the safety and cornerback. We'll see how that all turns out for this team, but there's just going to be a lot of young players for this team this upcoming year, and it'll be open competition pretty much. So we'll see if these players can help the Steelers move in a younger direction, because it is an overhaul. So we'll see how it turns out. And now the final topic of today's show, we'll be talking about Pitt basketball. And the schedule, their 2013 ACC schedule, was released this past Tuesday. And the home and away opponents. The 4 schools that they will be playing twice. Syracuse, they're of course familiar with being in the Big East in the past. North Carolina State, Maryland, and Clemson. The other away opponents will be Boston College, Georgia Tech, Miami, North Carolina, and Notre Dame. And then their home opponents will be Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Florida State, and Duke. This will be the first time Duke will enter the Peterson Event Center, and it's the first time since 1980 that they will be traveling to Pittsburgh. I hope to get tickets for that game, because it's just going to be one heck of a game to watch. Duke is one of the most historic programs in college basketball. It's just going to be fun to see this Pitt team go up against new types of teams. We'll see how their style plays in the ACC. I have a feeling they can be successful. Playing the likes of North Carolina on the road, that'll be a fun game to see. I like the schedule. And with the teams that they're playing twice, it's nice to have a familiar opponent in Syracuse, Clemson, and Maryland, North Carolina State. I like the schedule for Pitt. And they'll obviously be revealing the rest of their schedule, the non-conference opponents, soon to come. I would like to see them hopefully schedule at least more than one tough game, not a lot of cupcakes, so to speak. So we'll see how that turns out. And news that just came out today, I read in the Post-Gazette, it's not official, but the Panthers are going to be suffering what looks to be likely another transfer. This time it is J.J. Moore. Did not really live up to his hype, I would say. I thought he could have been, how Gilbert Brown was. I thought he had the potential to be like him. He was originally a small forward. They converted him to a power forward with, Lamar Patterson being here. And it was a question mark really up right now as to whether or not Moore would actually be starting next year. Because, like I said, Lamar Patterson had the job at the starting small forward position. And I think J.J. Moore is a little bit too big to be a shooting guard. And depending on who would be in at center, Zana, he could switch between the power forward position and center. Maybe Moore just was not comfortable with the power forward position. Like I said, it's not official, but John Rothstein out of CBS Sports posted this on Twitter, that according to one of his sources, that Moore was going to leave. So that's just not a good sign, because they've had so many transfers already, in the past. With, Ken Burch last year, Trey Ziegler, John Johnson. So I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see what kind of fallout this will be. I mean, maybe it's just because he wouldn't be maybe in the starting lineup. But I mean, it's too early to tell. I mean, I like J.J. Moore, but like I said, his production came off the bench last year, averaged less than 5 points a game. He definitely could have been more big of a factor, I think, to help the team. But with Adams leaving for the NBA draft, graduating seniors, Dante Taylor, Trey Woodall, I don't know. It's not looking good for this Pitt team. I thought maybe they'd be able to make it back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, but early indications, it might be a struggle for them again this year. I think they'll be definitely over 500, but maybe to make it to the NCAA tournament, I don't think it's not definitely a lock to say at this point. But that'll do it, though, for today's edition of the Sports Wrap. Got into a lot of stuff. Talked about the Steelers draft, the Pitt transferring of J.J. Moore, possibly. Got into some Pirate talk, Penguin talk. Definitely next week we'll be getting into the playoffs. The Penguins and the Islanders should be 3 games into the series. Definitely give you an update on the rest of the series. The Pirates will have a 3-game road trip wrapped up in Milwaukee. Hopefully it will be a success for them this time at Miller Park. Then they'll have a 3-game series with the Nationals back at PNC Park. So we'll talk about those 6 games. Talk more about the Steelers. We'll see, probably give you a little bit more info about more of their draft picks. We'll see if they do any releases, with Leftwich and Batch, which I intend will be coming soon. And that'll be pretty much it for next week's show. And, of course, any other interesting, eye-popping news that I catch in the sports world. And we'll probably give a little update, too, about the NBA playoffs. I don't really talk about the NBA that much, but I think it would be nice to talk a little bit about that, too. So that'll do it. You just listened to the Sports Wrap. Signing off, I'm Michael Kravetz.